Last night was round 4 of the 2020 Monster Energy Supercross season at Glendale, Arizona. It's the first Triple Crown of the season, and you gotta love Arizona. The stadium layout always makes for some pretty cool track layouts, and with that being the first Triple Crown of the year, made for a pretty interesting night. All right, welcome back, everybody. To those of you who have, I guess, seen my previous videos, man, it feels so much better being back in my little space. Vegas kind of sucked. My voice was shot from yelling the night before at the McGregor fight. I was all monotone, and it just sucked. I don't like that video at all. So it feels much better to be here. Yeah, let's talk about Arizona. So first thing, just really quick, I want to talk about the track layout. I thought it was really cool. Arizona with their stadium with the cutout so that they can bring the field in and out always makes for a really unique track layout. And this year was no different. I liked it a lot. I thought the double for the finish was really cool. Dudes were kind of jumping off the track on it in practice, so you could see they took tough blocks off of the landing and made everything just fine. The sand was sick. The two corners after the sand, the left and the right, were like my favorite corners of any Supercross. The dirt was okay. Dirtworks did the best that they could with what they had. They tried to have a ton of moisture in the track during practice, and it was pretty much muddy. That could have made it worse, honestly, because underneath, with it being so wet, when it packed down hard, it just made it even harder. And then they had like a little layer on top that was just kind of like fluff. It just made it really slick as the night went on. But, I mean, what can you do with dirt like that? Dirtworks did the best they could, so it's fine. But the track being slick definitely was an interesting part of the night. Okay, we got to get into this or else this video is going to be way too long. 250s, main number 1. First off, I think people just like to punk Craig this season because Forkner hit him off the track instantly. I mean, it's fine. Forkner needed to get into the lead, and that's what he did. Some other dudes that had some good starts were Martin, Mosman, and Hayes. Martin and Hayes kind of went back, but I mean, I don't expect anything different. Martin needs to get off of Suzuki. I've said this before. Hayes was on a privateer bike, and he actually had a great night, I think. I'll talk about that more later. And then Mosman had a great night also, and he looked really good up front in that first main. And then Ferrandis and Cooper both had a terrible start that first main. I think Ferrandis was able to maybe, squeak through on the inside. Don't know what happened to Cooper in that first main. He got a terrible start, and then I guess went down at some point, I think, on the first lap. Then they never showed us. And then just made a stupid mistake and slid out later all by himself and just probably had the worst race of his entire career. I think he ended up 17th at the end of that first race, and he's really lucky that it was Triple Crown because a normal main would only been, 5 minutes longer, and I don't think he would have done much in 5 minutes. He might have been able to get up into 14th. Who knows? Back to Craig. So when Craig went back on the track, he was behind Ferrandis, and I think he really, really, really wanted to pass Ferrandis, especially after what happened last week. Craig is not somebody that ever really rides over his head, and that first main, he looked like he was charging really hard, but he wasn't the only one. Everybody was charging really hard. It was actually, I really enjoy these Triple Crowns because these first mains in the 250s, the track is perfectly smooth, and we get to see every fast guy on a smooth track, which personally I really like to watch because they go so freaking fast. But that made it hard if you didn't get a good start. Ferrandis somehow was able to figure out a way how to get out of a bad start, but he has consistently had more speed than everybody, so he's the only one that can get away with a bad start. But if he would have had a good start, maybe he could have won. But the dude of the night was definitely Forkner. Got a good start, got up front early, and just kind of made no mistakes and went on to an easy win in that first main. There's not much else to say about it. He did exactly what he needed to do. He got lucky with Ferrandis and Cooper having bad starts and having bad luck. Speaking of Ferrandis, did anybody else think that he was going to take himself out again in that first main when he was passing Martin? Because he really cut over on Martin coming out of the whoop section. And I thought for sure they were going to hit, and that would have been 100% Ferrandis' fault. I thought he was going to take himself out again. He got lucky. He didn't. And then I thought Mosiman was going to take him out too. I thought everybody was going to take out Ferrandis because everybody wanted retaliation for what happened to Craig last week, but that ended up not happening. Everybody rode him fine, which is probably good. We don't need revenge takeouts. I think that's against the rules too, isn't it? It probably would have got docked. I don't know. But as far as main number one goes, Cooper, terrible. Ferrandis, not bad. Not the best start. Got his way into second. Pretty good. And then Forkner, perfect. So main two. Okay, we gotta keep rolling or else this video is gonna be way too long. So the first thing I want to talk about with this main is Justin Cooper on the outside in the start. So if there's ever a factory guy on the outside, everybody needs to pay attention to him because more often than not, it seems they get the whole shot. My overall theme with these videos seems to be pressure, the pressure these guys have. One thing everybody feels, no matter if you're the last place guy or the first place guy, everybody feels pressure on the start. You can lie to yourself and say, oh no, I'm all calm on the start, but no, everybody feels pressure. When you're a factory guy on the outside like that, you don't have to worry about trying to get your elbows in front of the dudes next to you because you're on such a faster bike, because you're going to be surrounded by privateer bikes. And so that one little element, I think, taken away, knowing that you're going to get the jump on everybody around you, kind of takes a little bit of that pressure off. And when even just a little bit of pressure is taken off, people tend to perform much better. So if you got a factory guy on the outside, more often than not, they get the whole shot. And Cooper got the whole shot. I'm telling you, it happens all the time. So if there's ever a factory guy on the outside, just watch him. Just watch him, okay? So Cooper gets the whole shot, quads into the corner in the first rhythm section, gets a big old lead almost instantly. And then, his night was just so terrible. He made another mistake, fell in the lead within 2 minutes of the race starting. When you crash that early, you're going to get passed by everybody, and he did. So what place did he end up getting? God, this origin thing needs to go away. So after getting the whole shot, Justin got up to 9th by the end of the moto. So he salvaged something. Not much, but something. And then Ferrandis got another bad start, was in like 20th again. But he was lined up on the inside every time. So he was able to weasel his way around the inside when everybody was pushing wide and come out of the first corner in around 10th. So, I mean, that's good for him. It's bad for everybody else. Don't know what else to say. But I think my favorite thing of this main was definitely Derek Drake in second off the start and then leading the race for a while. I love seeing these rookie dudes up front. I don't know why. I just really do. I like it when young kids are fast because that's not something I was like. When these 16-year-olds are going pro, I was in the C class. So I like seeing these young dudes go fast. I don't know why. But I think he rode a really good race. He did get passed, I think that's fine. What did he end up getting? He ended up getting third in the race. I think that's awesome. He got passed by Forkner, and one thing I thought was interesting was all the top guys were doing that gnarly quad, and Drake just must not have felt that comfortable doing it, so he was going triple single into the corner, and he wasn't pressured into doing that quad, which I think is something that a lot of rookies would have been pressured into doing. Forkner did the quad, and then it was an easy pass for him, and then Ferrandis' pass was ridiculous on the outside in the sand. I mean, hey, the kid got third in pretty much a full main. I mean, 5 more minutes, he would have probably stayed in third. Who got fourth? Ooh, Mosiman was in fourth. Mosiman might have caught him. And Mosiman in fourth. Mosiman's been killing it too these first 2 mains. But, like Cooper, Craig. Don't even get me started. So in St. Louis, I talked about Craig being his own worst enemy and needing maybe a sports psychologist or something if he doesn't already have one. Well, I am still sticking with that because Craig can't seem to make it through a season, and the 3 out of the 4 races has DNF'd every single one. One last week, you can argue it wasn't his fault. It was a little bit his fault. He should have protected the inside, but I don't know what happened last night. St. Louis was his fault. I'm guessing last night was probably his fault. And then something happened with his eye. I haven't seen anything on Instagram yet saying what actually happened to him. Kid is his own worst enemy, and he needs to figure it out. He really does. And then finally, Forkner. Another perfect race. Out front early, no mistakes, just easy. I say easy, but it's not easy. The work that these guys have to do to be able to ride like that, it's not easy. But then finally, the third and final main of the 250s, Saw Cooper again on the outside, and again, he didn't get the whole shot. He got second. He almost got the whole shot. Costello actually got the whole shot. But Cooper got into the lead early. Forkner and Ferrandis were around 5th in the start and then battled a little bit at the beginning of the moto. Ferrandis ended up getting past Forkner, and Forkner just couldn't quite keep up. I was wondering if he kind of backed it off in the third moto, knowing what position he needed to get compared to Ferrandis, whichever position Ferrandis was in. But if that was his mentality, I don't think he would have let Dylan get that far ahead of him. So later on the podium, he did end up saying that he rode tight and he just couldn't keep up with Cooper or Ferrandis. And I think pressure, that's the thing. He said that he had more to lose than anybody, obviously going 1-1 in the first two mains. So I think some of that pressure got to him. He rode a little tight, but hey, he still did what he needed to do in order to get the overall. Cooper out front finally rode like himself, didn't make any mistakes. Was jumping through the whoops, which I thought was weird. He was jumping through the whoops at the end of main 2. Then he was jumping through them again, and I think that's the only reason Ferrandis was able to catch him, because it was way slower to jump through him. But it was safer. So if that's what Cooper felt he needed to do, then that's fine, because he still got the moto win. He looked good besides that. Moseman didn't get the best of starts, so he was riding pretty hard trying to get back to the front. And he looked really good doing it and secured himself a podium overall for the night, which is awesome. And then finally, I want to talk about Hayes. Hayes on that privateer bike, they didn't talk about him all night until the very end. He rode a great night. What was his finishes? He went 6.55 for 5th overall. That's a great finish on a privateer bike. So I want to give kudos to Hayes. Maybe he should have gotten a factory ride. Arena Cross champion. I'm just saying. Hayes is gnarly. But at the end of the day, it was Forkner's night. Obviously 100%. And I'm just really glad that this championship is still plenty alive. The top 3 are within 10 points of each other. That's crazy. They've all had their own really bad rounds. Last night was Cooper's. Ferrandis's was round 2. Forkner's was last weekend. All of these guys have had terrible nights. That's why they're all so close to each other. And then there's a sleeper in third. Hartranft is in third, 9 points behind Cooper. I don't talk about him in these recaps because I don't ever watch him, and I think I need to change that, because he could be the sleeper in this championship if he keeps racking off podiums from here on out while everybody else is having these catastrophic terrible races. He could sneak his way in there to, dare I say, a championship. I don't think so, but he's somebody to watch out for, and so I need to start watching him. 250s, great racing. 450s now. There's way too much to talk about in these Triple Crowns. These videos are going to be longer than the normal ones. 450 main number 1. So the start of the first main was pretty awesome. It seemed like all the heavy hitters were out front early, all but Webb. But other than that, everybody was out front. Roczen, though, was the one who wanted to win the most tonight. And you could tell his pass on Tomac through the sand was awesome. Osborne was out front. Osborne, man, he had the worst night out of anybody, I think. He was out front early. Unfortunately, he crashed, and then Roczen got into the lead. And then from there, him and Tomac battled pretty hard, which was awesome to see because they're the top 2 guys, I think. With them right with each other, you really got to see the differences, I think, in Tomac and Roczen's bike. So Ken's bike looks so perfectly balanced front to back, and it really never skips out side to side. And I think a lot of that has to do with his riding style is a picture perfect of what you want. And Tomac's bike just doesn't look like that. It looks all saggy in the back, looks a little soft, it skips out to the side a lot, and maybe that has to do with Tomac's riding style. He rides like me, which I don't want to ride like this anymore. He's very hunched over, heavy on the front, but also leans off the back. He's just crazy on the bike. I think that was pretty interesting to see their differences in how their bikes worked and react in certain situations. Something that they said on the broadcast that I really liked too was they said that Roczen likes to visualize. He likes to visualize the number 1 on his bike. And I think visualization is something that everybody should try to do, not just athletes or anything like that, everybody. The first person I heard talk about it was Conor McGregor. I saw YouTube videos of him pretty much predicting the future. Is a little ridiculous, but I think everybody should try to do this. You visualize, really. You can almost meditate to try to do it. Visualize what you want in the future, and then the steps that you need to take to get to that future are easier to come across. They're not laid out in front of you. You still have to find those steps. You can find them easier. But that's all I wanted to say. I really thought that was cool that they talked about Roczen using visualization, because I'm really big on that. I don't do it enough, but I should. And then again, with the theme being pressure, Tomac was pressuring Roczen the entire moto, and Roczen never made a mistake. Roczen even started changing his lines up because Tomac almost passed him a couple times on some insides. So Roczen went from what he thought was the fastest line to protecting the insides, and then it ended up that those were actually faster lines, and it seemed like he actually was starting to gain a little bit on Tomac from there. He got the win. It was a great race. I enjoyed it a lot. Some of the other championship dudes, just to see where they were at. Cincerillo seemed like he was actually gaining on those two guys towards the end when he couldn't keep up with them at the beginning. What place did everybody else end up getting? So we got Anderson 5th. That's a good result for him. Barsha 6th. That's okay. He needs to be up there farther. Webb 8th. Baggett 12th. And then finally Osborne ended up DNFing the race. I'm not sure why, but Malcolm Stewart 4th. I didn't talk about him at all, but that's awesome. Okay, now second main. So unfortunately, the second main actually had a red flag start. Normally, I like these longer starts because it kind of separates guys going into the first corner and you see less crashes. But sometimes what happened to Bogle can happen. And that's as guys get tangled up like you do in starts. It's not anybody's fault. But you're going so fast that Bogle got caught up with some people and knocked himself out. It was super unfortunate. I didn't like it at all. I got a soft spot in my heart for Bogle. I think I've said this before. I grew up racing with him a lot. I hated to see that, but stuff like that happens. So then they had a restart. So in the first start, Roczen was getting shuffled back, and then in the second one, he got the whole shot. So he got a bit of a gift. Osborne was down on the concrete in the first start, so he got a bit of a gift too, but didn't do much with it. Webb finally got a good start too, but he couldn't do anything with it. And actually, he was holding guys up, which was crazy to see. And then his whoop speed is still absolutely atrocious. He ended up getting passed pretty much 4 times through the whoops. He did get passed 3 times, and then one time, Cincerillo caught up to him in the whoops and then made the pass 2 corners later because of it. I'm not sure what his deal is because he also almost endoed in the whoops, so I'm sure that didn't help his confidence at all. But whatever his deal is, he's got to figure it out. These KTM boys, him and Musquin, I know Musquin's out, but him and Musquin, they really don't like whoops, do they? Cincerillo at one point was in second, looking really good, but then rookie mistakes, they're starting to pile up on him. He ended up falling, and Tomac got into second. Tomac couldn't do anything to the lead that Roczen had. It stayed the same pretty much the whole time. And Roczen was just cruising in the lead, looking really good, just like the first race. Well, first race he wasn't cruising. He had Tomac on him pretty much the whole time. But this race he was cruising and made it look easy. And again, I say easy, but like I said before, this isn't easy. Being that dominant is not easy. Track was changing, starting to break down, starting to get slick, and things were starting to get interesting. Some championship dudes real quick. Baggett looked good and made his way up into 4th. Anderson got a quiet 3rd. Webb went back to 5th. Cincerillo made his way back up into 6th after falling. Barsha 8th after Plessinger let him by. That was weird. Which Plessinger got a 3rd place start and did terrible. And then finally Osborne 11th. So Osborne still not the best. Okay, main 3. So main 3 had another red flag start. Not very often do you see 2 red flags in one night. Davalos had the whole shot at the first start. So that was very unfortunate for him. Team Tedder, KTM. That's weird, KTM instead of Cowie. But it ended up being Blos that went down. Unfortunately, it was his hometown race, so that really sucked for him. That's not something you ever want to hear. But the restart, Roczen again. I say gift, but it really wasn't a gift. Because I think he would have found his way up into the front no matter what. But he was like 7th in the first start, and then in the restart, he got the whole shot again. So it was kind of a gift. Osborne was down in the first corner on the first start, so he was given a gift. He was also down with Reed, and Reed didn't line up for the 3rd main event, unfortunately. Not sure what happened with him, but he hasn't been having a normal Reed season, and it's unfortunate, and it just kind of sucks to see. You never want to see a dude like that start to get old. He's getting old. But Tomac showed why hole shots matter, because for him, a 5th place start was good. But you're still with that group of people, and anything could happen. And he went into the corner a little hard, hit Osborne, and went down. However, he must have got up super fast, because he seemed like he was in 6th place almost immediately. He was pretty much right on Cincerillo, and then made a little mistake in the whoops, and then Cincerillo gapped him. And then he wasn't able to close that gap for a while, which I thought was interesting. Cincerillo must have been going fairly fast. Webb got a good start this time. Again, he was in 2nd, but he looked a little better, but he still didn't look that good to me. Still got passed. He still got passed 3 times in the whoops. Granted, one was when Cincerillo made another mistake and crashed in the whoops super hard. And then Tomac got by Webb. So that one kind of wasn't his fault. He had to wheelie over Cincerillo's bike. But yeah, Webb in whoops, just not his thing. And he needs to figure it out if he wants to win this, if he wants to back up his championship. But yeah, that Cincerillo crashing in the whoops, that looked like it hurt really bad. I saw on Instagram that he said he's all right. He'll be lining up next week, just a little beat up. Surprised he didn't break his back, honestly. And with that, Tomac got into 3rd, and then that's where he finished. And then in 2nd, Anderson, they showed him a little bit, so it wasn't a quiet 2nd, and he looked really good. After he passed Webb, he looked a little wild, Anderson style. So I think on the night, Anderson, Cincerillo, and Tomac, they all looked really good. Adam's rookie mistakes are starting to pile up. And unfortunately, they're starting to happen also at the end of the main events, and they're starting to be kind of big crashes. I'm sure that has something to do with rookie year on a 450 not being used to the tracks breaking down as much as they are. But with that, he has speed. He has a lot of speed. Him, Anderson, and Tomac, they all looked really fast on the night. But nobody could touch Roczen. Whenever they didn't even show Roczen until the last 2 laps of this main. And he was going so fast. I think it's safe to say that he's pretty much back to where he was, except for I think he's almost better than he was before all the injuries and stuff happened, because what led to those injuries was his kind of crazy riding style. He was so talented that he could just ride as hard as he possibly wanted and usually would be just fine. When you ride like that, that's what can lead to those big mistakes. And now that he's got an arm that doesn't work as good, both wrists barely work, it's forced him to kind of calm down a little bit and almost turn into a Dungey type rider, where he has learned to go insanely fast but in 100% control. That's why I think that he is almost looking better than he used to, because he'd never gotten a Supercross title when he was completely healthy, but I think he's got the best chance to win it this year. And that's pretty cool to see, because it was almost 3 years until his first win back again in Supercross, and then he won again 2 weeks later. I think he's back to his old winning form, and I hope he wins the championship. But it's still really early. 250s, everybody's still in it. 450s, he's got a lead, but it's not very big. He's only got an 8-point lead over Tomac, and then 11-point lead over Barsha, which Barsha needs to figure it out or else he's out. Glendale, it was a good race. I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it too. Like in the previous videos, let me know what you thought about it in the comments. If I didn't bring up something, there's so much that happens in these videos. I want to try to keep as short as possible, but these Triple Crowns, it's making it hard to do that. Let me know in the comments what you thought. I've been having great discussions with everybody in the comments, and don't be afraid to discuss with other people too. I want to hear differences of opinion, because I have my opinion and it's probably wrong, and you have your opinion and it's also probably wrong, and then somebody else can have an opinion that's probably also wrong, and somebody can have one that's right. So I just want to hear everybody's opinion, because that's what it is. It's an opinion. And then finally, I made a Twitch, and I am going to be streaming on that, some games or whatever. Maybe I could even do this over a stream or something. but I'm pretty good at racing games, so I'll probably do that. And I've never played MX Simulator, and I really want to, so I'll probably start with that. Right now, I'm planning on doing it, I think, like tomorrow around noon here, I would say. That is Mountain Time, noon to 1. So that would be what, 2 to 3 Eastern Time, or 11 to noon on the West Coast. If you want to watch, I'll have a link in the description to it. And if those times don't work, let me know, and I'll change them. But that's all I wanted to say. I hope to see you guys in my next video. So if you liked the video, like the video and subscribe. I'm almost halfway to monetization, guys. I'm getting close. Okay, I gotta go. Bye. Thanks for watching. Sorry it was so long.